Hello, everybody. My name is Sam. Welcome to Till the Whistle Blows podcast. And as always, for football, we are joined by our good friend, Carrie Krongard. How you doing today, Carrie?
Sam, I'm doing good. It's a bit of pressure. It's crunch time. This is maybe the biggest.
This is the moment right here. I know usually when we start our segments, we talk about basketball just to get your blind picks. But we got to jump into this. We've got a lot to cover.
We got to dive right in.
Super Bowl Sunday is coming up, but before we even get to them, we got to talk about the teams. And before we even get to that, let's talk about the huge blockbuster trade that went on a few days ago.
So much going on.
Matt Stafford just got traded to the Los Angeles Rams for 2 first-round picks. What was it, a second-round pick, and Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We talked about, how this was going to be an unprecedented offseason of QB movement. I was listening to our past podcast, and that was even before this trade went down. We heard that there were rumors of Stafford wanting out, but then you turn around and all of a sudden, even before the season's over, it gets moving. But I don't think anyone saw this coming. And it's really amazing from a Rams standpoint, considering the fact that Jared Goff was a number 1 overall pick 4 years ago, went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and has won a couple of playoff games. And you could definitely make the argument, and it would have been very easy for them to do so, and a lot of organizations to do so, that we like what we have with him. We're paying him a lot of money. We like the marriage with him and Sean McVay. He's our guy. But they looked in the mirror and they were honest, and they said, he's not good enough. And we talked about it this year, how this was a good team running the football. This was a good team playing defense, and their Achilles heel was the passing game. There are a lot of strong takes from both sides, and a lot of people on Twitter reacting very negatively to this trade. I'll be honest, Sam. I think it's. I don't know if it's going to win them a Super Bowl or not, but I think it's a ballsy move, and I think it's a massive upgrade at quarterback for the Rams. I mean, Matthew Stafford he's a top 5 arm in the league, and if you have a chance to pick up that kind of guy, you do it. You go ahead and pull the trigger, and you don't get an opportunity to have that kind of guy in a kind of situation where you have a Sean McVay, a Rams, a stable franchise that drafts well, that can actually run the football, and like Detroit, they can play defense. So, it is Super Bowl or bust. It's a ballsy move, but I think it's the kind of aggressive move that you have to make in this league if you want to win a Super Bowl. I don't see any way this isn't a massive upgrade at quarterback for the Rams. So that's my take on it. I love the trade.
I think this is a great trade for the Rams side of things. I think they get a great quarterback at Matt Stafford. I think that's still really good for them. For the Lions, Hall, I feel like they're definitely kind of getting gypped a little bit with the Goff part of it, but they do get compensation and draft picks, although really could be hit or miss right there, but you still get something for your future. But when it comes to that, like, the Rams definitely have a more well-built team for Matt Stafford right now. So, I mean, they have great running backs with Cam Akers and Henderson. They've got Robert Woods. They got Cooper Kupp just chilling there. And the defensive side of ball is like, this is probably going to be the best team Matt Stafford has played with. Now, not the greatest receiver ever because, he had Calvin Johnson, but, like, Calvin Johnson was not really a whole team for Matt Stafford. So I think for team-wise, this is going to be a huge step for Matt Stafford, and hopefully we'll see him in the playoffs come next year. And he could easily make a deep push with this Rams team with, as you mentioned, Sean McVay being the coach he is.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you pair him with an offensive mind in Sean McVay that, knows how to draw things up, has a well-schemed offense. And, Stafford, obviously he's going to have to it's going to have to be very disciplined for him because it's very about timing in Sean McVay's offense. But he's done that before. He did that in Jim Bob Cooter's offense, and it looked really good. So I think you take a top 5 arm in the league and you put it with this kind of offensive mind. I think it's a phenomenal upgrade. I think it's exciting to watch. I agree with you. I think it's a little more shaky from the Lions side. First of all, Jared Goff, I think, we've seen him with Sean McVay. I think take him away from Sean McVay. I think this is going to look like Nick Foles did with the Rams when he had a year with the Rams after he left the Eagles. It wasn't very good. I think that's what Jared Goff's going to look like. I don't know how he helps them or taking on that contract helps a rebuilding team at this moment. And yeah, in terms of the draft picks, that's the big argument for those who believe that the Lions won this trade is that the Rams give up a bunch of first-round picks. The Lions get a bunch of first-round picks. But my beef with that is twofold. Number one, first-round picks, you still have to make something out of those picks, right? And we don't know.
You don't know what you're getting. Like, yeah, you got a pick. That's great. Right. But you just lost another generational talent who didn't retire on you.
Right. We don't know, how Dan Campbell's or this organization in general, how they're going to do with rebuilding this team. That's number one. And even draft picks in general are a bit of a toss-up. And number two, the Rams, everyone's saying, okay, well, now they don't have depth. The depth issue maybe is a concern, but they don't have a first-round pick till 2024. But because of the, of the RG3 trade, they haven't had a first-round pick since 2016, and they've hit on the later-round picks a lot. So it hasn't been an issue for them up to this point. Some organizations just team build differently. The Rams don't believe they need first-round picks, but they've done a pretty good job up to this point.
They've been doing pretty well with these third-round picks, so they really haven't had a second-round pick either in recent years either. And in this Matt Stafford trade, they did get rid of, I think, a few.
Absolutely. So, for me, the question is, who do you have more faith in? Do you have more faith that Sean McVay and Matt Stafford can build a good offense together, or do you have more faith that Dan Campbell can successfully draft with a first-round picks? And for me, it's the former. I think Stafford's a proven talent.
He's definitely more proven than.
Is he amazing? No, but he's a solid quarterback. He's not. I mean, the people who are saying, oh, he's over the hit. I mean, he's 33 years old. If the injuries keep going on, yes, that's an issue. But we've seen quarterbacks play into their late 30s, and it's not just the elite guys. I mean, we see it with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So he's got 4 or 5 years left in his prime. He now gets to play with a good organization. They really. I mean, Matt Patricia really set that organization back. They were actually looking good with Jim Bob Cooter and Jim Caldwell. So at the end of the day, people have strong opinions on this, but I see this as a ballsy, aggressive move for the Rams, and I think it's just a phenomenal upgrade at quarterback for them.
Yeah, this is a great upgrade. I think the Lions have more work to do than the Rams right now because they were missing like a good solid quarterback who can make good decisions. No offense to Jared Goff, but he really was not the answer.
Yeah,
in this case.
Yeah. You take him away from Sean McVay, and I don't.
He might become the next Nick Foles here.
And we've seen, he really hasn't been the same since the 54-51 shootout against the Chiefs on Monday night. If you go look at his splits before that game, I mean, it wasn't just 2018, 2017 and 2018, he had a solid QBR. I think he was 7th or 6th or 7th or 8th in the league in QBR those 2 years. And then last year he's 15th, and this year he's 20th. So he really hasn't been the same. And credit to the Rams for recognizing, all right, we entered out a big deal. It didn't work, but we're not going to look back. We're just going to look forward and do what we can to upgrade.
Yeah, they were able to flip him and get a solid quarterback out of this. So it should be a fun season for them next year, hopefully, with Matt Stafford.
It's exciting. It'll be exciting to see him out west there.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, that's our first big quarterback move. We have a lot to go through. I mean, Big Ben might be out the door. We already saw Phil Rivers retire earlier this year. Like the moment their season ended, he was out the door. Drew Brees completely out the door right now too.
Suitors for Stafford too, and I don't know if you saw the report that he was open to going anywhere but New England because he didn't want to be reunited with Matt Patricia, which I thought was pretty funny. He didn't say explicitly that's why, but it's pretty clear.
Did New England get Matt Patricia back?
Yeah, they took him back on defense. I don't know if he's the coordinator, or if he's just an assistant, but they did bring old bearded pencil behind the ear guy back.
You're right. If I was Matt Stafford, I wouldn't want to go back either.
And Deshaun Watson, I mean, he is going to make a fortune very, very soon. So I'm very curious to see how that. But you're right. It's interesting. Ben seems to want to come back, and he said that he doesn't matter. He'll take a pay cut. He doesn't care. He just wants to come back. So. I'm for it. I'm for Ben coming back. I'm for Drew coming back. Let these old guys, let's play as long as they can. I don't think Drew's going to come back, but if he does, I'm for it.
It looks like, so I looked it up. Matt Patricia is the assistant to the head coach.
Okay. Well, that's, we know Belichick has all the power. That doesn't mean
he'll actually learn how to be a good Belichick. All right, that's good. But yeah, Deshaun Watson will be probably leaving Houston. Big Ben might be coming back. I kind of hope he doesn't. Phil's gone. Drew Brees is probably going to be gone. We have Brady, who's fucking 44 in a Super Bowl right now, and he's probably going to be sticking around for another 5 years. So this is going to be a wild ride.
Really?
What's up?
Is he 44, really?
He's 44 or 43.
I want to say 43, but you
got 43, okay, yeah. Cool. His birthday's August 3rd.
That is pretty amazing. He'll be fucking 44. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's an exciting offseason, and it's already gotten underway. But it's amazing. It's amazing to see the contrast, Sam, right, where you have teams that are so aggressively making moves to upgrade the QB position in ways we haven't seen before, right? I mean, usually you kind of settle with your guy and you say this is good enough, or you give a lot of money to average guys. This isn't like we saw with Brock Osweiler or Kirk Cousins. But,
Or Nick Foles.
teams are looking to upgrade. We even saw that the 49ers, which has confused me because I think Jimmy G's been fine. But we see a lot of teams looking to upgrade. And then, meanwhile, here's, you see the schism between the good teams and the bad teams. You have the Rams going out to get Matthew Stafford, and meanwhile you have the Eagles trying to convince themselves Carson Wentz is the guy, and the Giants are going to try to convince themselves Daniel Jones is the guy.
Yeah, I saw the 49ers want to go after Kirk Cousins.
I don't understand that at all.
Nah, I'd leave him in Minnesota right now.
I don't even think that's an upgrade. I mean, maybe I think he's probably a little better from the pocket, but he can't move. I mean, you need to move, and Shanahan. I mean, he can't move.
Shanahan's offense, that quarterback's got to move, and Jimmy G's got that subtle movement that Matt Ryan had that made it work.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I can't wait to. I'm looking forward to getting back with you during the off season and talking about these moves as they play out.
Yeah, once we see them, we'll definitely have to do a huge update on them.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's talk about these playoff teams. We went over the teams that didn't make the playoffs before the playoffs started. Let's talk about the playoff teams that didn't make it to the Super Bowl. We'll go in the order they got eliminated. So why don't we start with the Indianapolis Colts here. They did get out in the wild card round. They played the Bills. They had a great chance against them. I think a fumble call that fucked them, that got called for them. I think that was a wrong call still. But in prospect of the season, they come in with Phil Rivers, and you were expecting them to be like kind of whatever. But they really did outperform than what I thought. I don't know what your take would be on the Colts right now.
I've said it all year. I like the Colts. I like Frank Reich. I think they've built this. I mean, I think after years of doing it the wrong way with Andrew Luck, and arguably even with Peyton Manning, we've seen them do it the right way now with, I believe, Ryan Grigson, the general manager, and now Frank Reich, the head coach. I mean, his system is quarterback friendly. He gets the ball out. He spreads it around. They're often. I mean, Quentin Nelson, who, if the Giants didn't take a quarterback, that's actually who I wanted them to take.
He's proven to be probably one of the better linemen in the league.
He's been an anchor. He's been phenomenal. Jonathan Taylor, I thought, was a great pick. A pick people weren't talking about enough, and sure enough, after some fumble struggles early on in the season, he gets out of the doghouse.
He was able to figure it out later down the road. Like, we were really praising him throughout the year when it was going on.
Yeah, he's the bell cow, and he did it at Wisconsin, and the only question really was, did they wear him out at Wisconsin? But he continued to do that with the Colts, and learning to do it out of the shotgun and being effective in 100, even 200-yard days. I mean, he was a really effective bell cow, and they spread the ball around. Michael Pittman, I'd expect to see him to break out even more next year because he's a very talented wide receiver. And we had a solid year out of Phillip Rivers, and it actually was reported that there were rumors that they may have informed Rivers that they wanted to go in a different direction. That's why he retired. So interesting to see what they end up doing at quarterback, because with if it's Jacoby Brissett, then whatever. But if they get a solid young quarterback here, then they're gonna they're a team to watch moving forward.
Right now, so they're without a quarterback. They did lose one of their assistants to Philadelphia for some reason. I don't know why the Eagles hired him, but I'm not here to talk about the Eagles. I'm done with them until they make another big move. In terms of the Colts, like that defense though is what really kind of stood out for me on this team. Like, yeah, the offense was like whatever, but that defense, like, it was number one defense for a while, and like it was definitely held down by their young middle linebacker of Darius Leonard, and I think he just really helped propel this like team to new heights.
I agree. And they took it down to the wire with the Packers. I think they won that game.
They did win that game. They were down, I think, huge in the first half, and then they came back and won that bad boy.
Yeah, so the defense, and they had a win against the Titans early on in the year. So I think the defense did kind of fall off a little bit as the year went on.
Yeah, they definitely were starting to falter late down the road because they weren't really the number one anymore. I think the Rams took control of the defensive ranks by the end of the year.
There was an injury too that hurt them.
I forgot who got hurt, but I think you're right with that one. But with the Colts, like, as a whole, though, they definitely still had a good year, and they were definitely like kind of the entire year for them. I feel like because of the Titans, they were from the outside looking in for a majority of it, and the team that beat them kind of helped bail them out and got them a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it shows how competitive the AFC South team is too. And we talked about it, that they were on the outside looking in, and if they weren't bailed out at the end of the day, they could have been an 11-win team or a 10-win team on the outside looking in, which is pretty unprecedented and shows how competitive that division is. But unfortunately, Deshaun Watson's leaving, so the Texans aren't really going to be in the mix.
The Texans and the Jaguars are basically nothing right now. So it's really between those two.
Yeah, and if who knows what's happened with the Titans? I mean, we talked about it. If they've sort of peaked with Tannehill, that's sort of an opening for the Colts here. So really, quarterback is the big question for this team. I mean,
And honestly, the
they're
whole
sort of
AFC South is quarterback questions.
yeah, but they're sort of kind of reminds me of the Houston Texans before Deshaun Watson came when they like had a really good defense and they kept playing like Hoyer and Fitzpatrick and they just they
Osweiler.
have to figure right. They just have to figure out the quarterback question here, and once they do, if they could keep the rest of the roster intact, then they're good to go.
Yeah, so they've got some questions here, this Colts team coming down the road. It's going to be who's going to be quarterback, who's going to be help playing they've replaced a play caller now. And, they probably need to get some more receivers out there because they got T.Y. Hilton and they got Zach Pascal. But, after that, because T.Y. unfortunately kind of vanished once Luck left because that was Luck's favorite target. No one else really was there.
Well, you had Zach Pascal and then Michael Pittman. As I said, I would expect him to break out more so next year. We saw flashes of it this year. And so, but yeah, I could definitely see them taking a guy in the later rounds. Maybe I'm not. I haven't heard much from tight end. Is Jack Doyle still?
And Jack Doyle's still their tight end. I think
yeah.
He wasn't incorporated well. I know when Frank Wright was with the Eagles, Zach Ertz definitely played a bigger role. And I think they're trying to make Jack Doyle that Zach Ertz-esque kind of player.
Yeah, he's a bit more of an H-back. I would it'd be interesting to see them with a more athletic guy. I mean, they had Kobe Fleener and Dwayne Allen. Neither of those guys were as good as we expected them to be. So
no, they both kind of sizzled out.
Yeah. So, but they're also great on special teams. I mean, they have a top kicker and a top punter as well. So,
unfortunately, that top kicker did, I think, have a little bit of the shakes coming later down the road here. I know he started missing a few, and I think the nerves started hitting for him.
He missed a few, but I still think he led the league in scoring.
No, I think Younghoe Koo took that from him.
Oh, okay. Well, there's your one silver lining again with the Falcons. But yeah,
we don't need to talk about him. So
I think it's a solid foundation. A couple pieces are needed here and there, but I'm curious to see if indeed that's true and they wanted to move on from Rivers, because you and I both said, if it's not Rivers, who is it, right? And so I wonder if they have a plan there. I wonder. I mean, we know Jacob Eason's there, but he's, it's hit or miss with these late round guys. So I'm curious what their plan is for quarterback inside that building.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens for the Colts this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see where they go from here.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we talk about the Seattle Seahawks now, your favorite division?
Yeah, let's talk about them. This whole division, we talked about it all year, was kind of mediocre this year, but they were all mediocre, so they canceled each other out. The Seahawks, I mean, we talked about it after the playoff loss. I really feel like they're at a crossroads here because, they started the year on fire with let Russ cook, and then they just couldn't throw the football.
Let Russ cook became let Russ make your appetizer.
Right, and they're the same team every year. I mean, they
start hot. They falter a little bit. They make the late playoff push, early exit.
Right.
There's nothing else that really happens with the Seahawks anymore that could surprise you. Like, Russ is a one-man team, and he's like, yeah, DK Metcalf is coming out as, one of the top receivers, but that's Metcalf. It.
And I just, schematically on offense, what are they going to do, right? Because, we saw Pete Carroll come out and say we need to run the football more, which drove analytics Twitter crazy. And they parted ways with Brian Schottenheimer because of quote-unquote philosophical differences. What were those philosophical differences? Because if you want to run the football, there's not really a coach that's more committed to the running game than Brian Schottenheimer. I mean, maybe Greg Roman, but he's over in Baltimore. So, I don't know what the answer is. I don't think going run heavy is the answer, but I don't think going pass heavy is the answer either. I think they just need to figure out a way to have Russell Wilson be effective for all 16 games. And he's such a unique quarterback. I mean, it's so interesting because, yes, at the same time, he's a top quarterback in this league, but because of his height, he's not exactly a guy that's going to play rhythmically all the time. So what kind of passing game can he be consistently effective in? It just feels like I don't know what the answer is, and it feels like no one's on the same page in Seattle anymore.
No, after that Super Bowl loss to the Patriots, it's definitely gone downhill from here. You lose beast mode due to age and just pissing him off at that point. You lose Richard Sherman. You lose Earl Thomas. Cam Chancellor left for retirement. I believe Malcolm Smith isn't even there anymore. Like you lost all the key pieces that made this team great, and you're trying to replace it with Shaquille Griffin. You got Jamal Adams in there that can't intercept the ball for the life of him, and like you're trying to find like you had grade A, now you're taking a step back to like the B team here at the moment. The only person that really remained from that Legion of Boom days was like Bobby Wagner. And he's hitting the back end of his career now. So, I mean, for the Seattle Seahawks, it might be time to, like, maybe think about doing a quick rebuild here and, just try to get the best pieces for Russell Wilson here.
Yeah, I just don't know what their identity is. And
They
I don't
really don't. Like, what? They have Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson as their main backs.
Yeah, and I think Pete Carroll's a good coach, but it doesn't feel like the team is as cohesive and as like there's a unified vision there.
He's not really. I feel like he's not upgrading with the times as quick as he should be. Like he understands. Like, yes, the football age is definitely shifting to something else, and he's trying to do it. But he's bringing in. He's got like a. There's no one clear answer. I think is what you're correct with that. Where it's like he's got too many different minds coming together, and he's trying to take the best pieces of everything, and it's just not working.
I agree, and there was an interesting piece by one of the I just scrolling Twitter, I didn't see who it was, but at the Players Tribune, it was one of the former Legion of Boom members, and he was talking about how what we were talking about, how cohesive they were, and with the Legion of Boom, how there was just such a belief in everything that was going on. And after the way that Super Bowl ended with that interception on the 1 yard line and not giving it to Marshawn Lynch, which I think that gets a bit overblown, but he essentially, he was talking about how after that call and after that result, the team kind of just fractured because it sort of burst the bubble, right? Because like they didn't believe in what they were doing anymore, and it kind of had an effect on the Seahawks going into the following season. I mean, whatever way you want to spin it, wherever you want to place the blame, I mean, their passing game was really bad to finish the season. Now, maybe this was just a bad Rams matchup. I mean, clearly the Rams played them 3 times, clearly had their number. Maybe if they play a different team, it doesn't turn out that way. But it's really amazing to me that because that they could go from being so good to start the season to being so bad to finish it. And I don't really have an answer as to why that's the case, but it was really just a total 180. And as you said, it's something we're seeing. It's the same story year after year for Seattle. So I don't really know what the
playing the same tune every year now, and they're not making any changes. Yeah. And as you mentioned, like that Super Bowl handoff, I mean that had huge ramifications for the Seahawks after that. Like Dan Quinn left, he was gone after that, and you brought in someone, and he wasn't really meshing well with them. And like you said, also the philosophy wasn't there anymore that no one really was wanting to be with.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what they do philosophically, but I don't. I mean, I don't know. I agree. It just seems like something stale there, and they've hit their ceiling, and they, no matter what they do, it seems to be the same outcome every year. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, when that happens, it's hard not to look at the coach and at least put some blame there.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do moving forward. But
we'll see him here next year.
Yeah. It's not the way they would have wanted to end.
No, easily. Like they should have probably beaten this Rams team, to be honest with you. But because the Rams and like Sean McVay, I think just knows what he's doing better.
Yeah, especially considering the Rams had no quarterback going into that game. I mean,
they lost to John Wolford and Jared Goff with 9 fingers.
And with not right. So yeah.
All right, why don't we move on to the NFC East champion? I think the real winner of the league, the Super Bowl champion, should have been crowned right there when they won it. The Washington football team. That's my Super Bowl champion.
I mean, a pretty phenomenal job by Ron Rivera, considering they had. I mean, there were a lot of Giants. I saw a Giants post somewhere that was like, "Yeah, this Giants management thinks the Giants are heading in the right direction." Look at what Ron Rivera. I mean, they won 6 games. Look at what Ron Rivera did.
I was going to say, Ron Rivera beats cancer. He has a quarterback with a fucked up leg. He had another quarterback with a stripper problem, and then he had Taylor Heineken, who no one even knew about.
Yeah, 4 different quarterbacks on the year, and you win 7 games. I think the first round picks at the front 7 have been starting to congeal and starting to pay off for this team. It didn't happen right away. it didn't happen right away. I mean, early in the season, we did say, what's going on here, and
Wasn't
why
they
isn't
beat
it.
Philadelphia and that was really it, and then like later down the road they started cooking here.
Yeah, it took some time, but it did happen, and they played the Bucks well in the playoffs, and
Yeah, they did
again,
a great great job there. So yeah, they won the first game. They dropped the next five. They beat the Cowboys, dropped two, and then they kind of got hot in the second half of the year, beating some solid competition here. To
yeah, I'm just pulling up,
get them over the hump.
yeah, I'm just pulling up their schedule here. I mean, it's a pretty amazing turnaround after the bye. I mean, before the bye, they started 2-5, and then after the bye, they finished 5-4. It looks like.
Yeah.
Um, so again, obviously, the NFC East you would think would be better, although honestly, it's not looking like it's going to be much better next year. But yeah, they absolutely destroyed the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I think that was a statement game for them. And then, 3 straight weeks here. Then they go into Pittsburgh and
I
they
was gonna
kind
say,
of,
yeah, they beat undefeated Pittsburgh.
yeah, San
Sorry.
Francisco. So
They beat the injury-prone 49ers, and then, yeah, they dropped two, but then they beat the Eagles to punch their ticket.
yeah, and obviously a bit of an asterisk with that game, considering
Right,
Doug Peterson.
we'll not talk about him. He's not in the league anymore.
Right, right. So, but I really like what I saw with Ron Rivera and this team, and if I think if ownership, Snyder can get out of the way. I mean, did you see Jay Gruden's comments about Snyder? I mean, he did kind of a knock on Snyder. He said, we would, our team would spend weeks and weeks, researching guys in the draft, and Snyder would come off his yacht and pick whatever he wanted to do, and we know he was involved with the Haskins pick there. So it's an organization that, because of ownership, hasn't had a lot of success historically, but really good start for Ron Rivera. Solid foundation, and then Antonio Gibson on offense. I mean, they get rid of Adrian Peterson, and this guy ends up being the bell cow for them. So I assume that will continue next year. We know about Terry McLaurin and J.D. McKissick. They really just they need a quarterback.
They're a good quarterback away from making real noise in the league right now.
And they need more weapons at wide receiver.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Terry McLaurin is not a whole receiving core.
Right, but that aside, if they can, there's certainly you can't complain with what you saw from the first year head coach here. Not first year with Washington, obviously.
First year with Washington, yeah. I mean, again, 7-9 with Kyle Allen, who's never going to play again, with Dwayne Haskins, the stripper problem, Alex Smith with half a leg, and Taylor Heineke, who played an amazing, playoff game against the NFC champions here. But again, still with that, like this team definitely had a lot of issues that they overcame.
Yeah, it's kind of old school football, right? I mean, rely on the defense, rely on the running game, and kind of win these low scoring games and out physically. That's sort of been Ron Rivera's brand, and he was able to bring it effectively to Washington here.
Yeah, so honestly, I think this is a good year for a football team. I think the NFC East, I think this will become football team's territory if they ever come up with a name as well, too. I think that'd be greatly appreciated.
That's their next task, yeah.
Next task, come up with a name, but I think this was a good year, and I think with the way it's trending, I mean, the Cowboys are going downhill with Mike McCarthy, and they got Dan Quinn, who are both living in the past.
Every other team's going downhill.
I think the football team is the team that's going uphill here. So I think we'll be seeing the NFC East champions football team for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the NFC East, but certainly when you look at the coaching situations around the rest of that division, I agree with you. I would think that they certainly, based on at least this year, they have the advantage for sure.
I think they have the advantage. I think Giants are a good close second. I think the Eagles and the Cowboys are now in the basement.
Right, but the Giants, are retaining Dave Gettleman.
Dave Gettleman, that's the issue. Yes,
that's the issue. The Eagles are trying to make it work. We've talked about their dysfunction.
That's why the Eagles are in the basement, and so are the Cowboys.
Right. So they're the team with the best coaching situation right now. Honestly.
All right, let's move on.
And they've drafted well too. I mean,
they did lose the guy that made those draft picks, though. I think Kyle Smith was his name. Something like, I can look it up because The Falcons just took that guy from them.
Is that the fusion dance combination of Kyle Allen and Alex Smith? Or?
Apparently, Kyle Smith, who was promoted to vice president of player personnel last year by Washington and helped lead a successful draft and free agency period, is leaving to take similar position with the Falcons.
All right, well,
so
it's good for the Falcons.
Hopefully he can help bring that. All right, let's move on to the Tennessee Titans. We were talking about them a lot this year. They were really solid throughout the year. They definitely had their faults with like the Bengals loss. They lost a couple key games here. They had a great running outage from Derrick Henry, but it turned out that being one-dimensional like that was not the answer when it came to the playoffs. Yeah, they had a costly loss to the Steelers, the Bengals. They lost a big one to the Packers, and then they lost again here to the Ravens by a one-score game. I think the big thing here is, though, before we move on to how they performed, like they had a great rushing year, and they lose their offensive coordinator who helped Derrick Henry become King Henry.
Mike LaFleur, was that?
No, they lost Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith, right. Where did he go again?
He's the head coach of the Falcons.
I was mixing up Falcons guys there.
Yeah, I know. Mike LaFleur somewhere else. I don't know where he went, but they lost the guy.
Oh no, Mike LaFleur's into the Jets. Okay,
yeah.
My bad. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we've seen that this team when they played well, they looked great. I mean, they put up 40 points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this year. And when they weren't putting up 40 points, they put up over 30 points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this year as well. So they were an offensive juggernaut for a lot of their games, and there were just kind of random weeks where it just didn't show up. And considering how well they played, it does feel like a disappointment. They have a season low points against Baltimore Ravens. Again, that's a home playoff game where they win the AFC South. I mean, everything looked like it was going in their direction, but I think that Packers loss was a bad sign for them, and then that having to take it towards the end with the Texans in Week 17 certainly was a bad sign for them as well. And Tannehill had a good year. I mean, we know they have weapons, but like you said, it just feels like this team kind of has hit their ceiling because they're so one-dimensional. I mean, Derrick Henry was phenomenal this year. It was really an MVP level year, as we've talked about before. I mean, he had over 1,000 yards rushing on first down. I mean, that's how good he was. He was the bell cow, and yet when they couldn't, when they couldn't do the play action pass game off of him, it kind of threw apart. They didn't really have a traditional drop back passing game, and that sort of came to a head in the playoffs where Derrick Henry, I believe, was held to a season low in rushing, and that's the thing about I think that makes it 0-5 for 2,000-yard rushers in the playoffs. So that's the thing when you're one-dimensional and when you really any given week the run game can be shut down. So. And like you said, big loss at offensive coordinator. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of frustrating because you want to see the Titans do well, and when they're clicking, I mean, they look phenomenal. And we know Ryan Tannehill is a talented guy, and we know they have talent at wide receiver. But it just seems like
it didn't click here.
Yeah, it just seems like this team can't really win when they're not playing their style of football, and they're just too inconsistent. Considering how well they look when they're clicking, and it's just they need to be able to do that more often because it seems like it was kind of week to week for these guys.
It really was, and honestly, I mean, there was definitely a lot of questionable calls for Vrabel too throughout the year. So I mean, definitely got to work on that, like that fourth down that they should have gone for, and then they didn't. Like he definitely makes a lot of questionable calls here. He's not as bad as Bill O'Brien, but he's not as good as Mike Tomlin. So, I mean, there's a kind of a spectrum here with that.
Yeah, and their defense really was an issue as well. I mean, if you're going to run the ball, you have to play well on defense. And their defense, I mean, considering that this was a team that, kind of knocked off the Patriots last year, it's kind of pretty amazing how much their defense fell and how often they had to win shootouts. Now, they did win a bunch of those shootouts, but they also lost them as well. So I don't know necessarily where you start there in terms of personnel. I don't know what position is the biggest need for you there, but they've got to be better on defense next year.
They really do. I mean, yeah, they lost the guy who also saved the season, who helped beat the Patriots, and Logan Ryan last year. So, I mean, they lost him. I mean, they were supposed to have Jadeveon Clowney be like this huge linebacker, but due to injuries, as always, he was nowhere to be seen.
He has not lived up to his draft type. I mean, and I would think Ryan Tannehill would be back next year, right? I mean, he's sort of on the books for a couple years
There's
now.
no real reason to move on from Tannehill. I mean, yes, he had a rough outing, but the Ravens and the Titans seem to play each other a lot recently, so I think they're starting to see each other and like figure it out. We'll talk about the Ravens when we get to when they lost, but like they're definitely, these two teams are very similar in their philosophies, but I think they just execute them differently.
Yeah, but so again, it's a good enough foundation, like you said, that there's no reason to make any.
There's no huge changes. Like they
here.
could easily build off of what they have here. They have the great pieces with, like, they have AJ Brown. They have, oh shit, I can't think of the other receiver.
Davis.
Corey Davis.
So
Davis. They have Derrick Henry, and they even have a backup for Derrick Henry when he needs to like sub out for a bit.
Well, I wonder if they hang on to Steven Gostkowski here, if they kind of, because
it might be time to move on from Gostkowski.
Yeah, kicker's been an issue for them for a couple of years now, but he did come on late in the season, and he still was very good from long range. So interesting to see what they do there.
We'll have to see. It was, I think, Rob Baronis, I think, was their last like really good like long-term kicker for them.
Rest in peace. Yeah, Rob Baronis, no longer with us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that was but yeah. Well, actually, Ryan Suckup was their guy, and then he gets hurt, and so they think, they'll move on from him, and he goes to Tampa, and
now he's in the Super Bowl.
Of course. So of course, Tampa. Brady always has good kickers. So,
Brady does.
But yeah, again, I don't think they're going to make any huge changes here.
No,
again,
just maybe a new kicker. That's probably the biggest move, I think.
The question is, whether you can win when you have to throw the football, with outside of play action, and I don't know that they need to prove that. That's an open question for them at this point.
They got to be able to play with the pass too, yeah. All right, let's move on to the team that lost on Nickelodeon, the Chicago Bears. I think it's fitting that they lost on a children's network because they played like children out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same story all year for them. It's been great defense, and really for most of the decade, great defense and nothing on offense.
They have defense and a quarterback controversy with Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky, and they're both terrible, and they should really get a new quarterback.
He's got to go. Well, here I googled, because we said, are they finally? And I just googled Mitch Trubisky, and it said here. Excuse me, Mitch Trubisky and Bears are expected to part ways this offseason per Dan Silo on Twitter. I don't know who that is, but I certainly hope they because even the most minuscule QB upgrade, even if it's Teddy Bridgewater or well, he's been a little iffy post injury.
He might be staying with Carolina too.
Even he would be an upgrade. It's just this team has just been tied at the hip by poor quarterback play.
Honestly, you get a Ryan Fitzpatrick in there, or even go get Joe Flacco if you want. That might be a little better.
And I don't know about Joe Flacco, but yeah, someone who can make quick decisions is Matt Nagy offense. Again, they make the decision to stick with Matt Nagy here, and I've had questions about his offensive philosophy. I mean, we haven't really seen the Andy Reid magic carry over. Like we said, maybe that'll change with a different quarterback, but they've done a lot of tight splits out of the shotgun, and they haven't really committed to the running game. Now, late in the season, they did. Late in the season, we saw David Montgomery, and I kind of questioned where that was early in the season. So maybe if he can stay healthy and be the foundation of their running game, if they can commit to it, then I don't know. Maybe they did go on a late run here, but how often are these late runs, kind of false hope? That's something we'll have to wait to see until next year. And the only other really good thing I can say is that Cairo Santos kind of rejuvenates his career.
He came back, but I think they're also going to be losing Allen Robinson this year, so they're losing a good receiver on that.
Right.
And that's because they couldn't get him a quarterback. I mean, poor Allen Robinson's been playing with really bad quarterbacks his whole career.
Yeah, I agree. Who knows where he'd be if he was playing with, somebody capable at quarterback. But, he's frustrated. He wants out. So you're essentially
so he's probably going to leave in this offseason. And then the Bears are really
50-year-old Jimmy Graham here. you're essentially throwing a 50-year-old Jimmy Graham here, and that's that's about it.
And basically, at this point, they have an amazing defense, and they can bring back Rex Grossman if they want. It'll be the same goddamn result.
Right, Jay Cutler. So yeah, but this organization decides to give Matt Nagy another year here, and so we'll see what they do. But it starts and ends at the quarterback position, and
he's gonna need to get rid of both these guys and actually bring in like a real quarterback. Unfortunately, Nick Foles hasn't done anything since the Super Bowl run.
Yeah,
and then also like Trubisky hasn't done anything since he came in the league besides win the Nickelodeon's Valuable Player.
The MVP, yeah. So he's had more than enough time to prove that he's the guy, and he hasn't. So
well, it doesn't help too that you got like you were drafted the same year as Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, and they're easily blowing you out of the water.
Right. I mean, and that is the one stat or factoid that will never that will always be thrown in the Bears' face because
they traded up to get Trubisky, and Mahomes and Watson are doing much better.
They traded up, yeah. So they need to. It's been too many years where they've kind of stuck to the Mitch Trubisky experiment, and hopefully they've learned their lesson. If not, too late.
No, but they're trying to grasp at straws here with this one, so this way it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah,
it looks pretty bad.
Yeah. It does.
All right, last team to lose on Wild Card Weekend, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They started strong. They were 11-0. They lost the football team, and that's where the cracks started to show. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, became a real head case with Chase Claypool. Like, I think their receivers just became too much of a problem in that in their locker room, and I think it just became too much of an issue for at that point, and Mike Tomlin just could not keep control of these young guys anymore.
They're not a good offense. They struggled to pass protect. They can't run the football, and they don't have good. I mean, hopefully, Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool hopefully take steps forward next year. But I still, they're where do you start? You need to draft a running back. You need to draft more receivers. It's just amazing to me to see a Pittsburgh wide receiving core this bad because they always have amazing wide receiving cores, and so many of their picks from recent years just kind of flamed out. I mean, Sammy Coates didn't work out. Eli Rogers moved on, and then
Martavis Bryant.
Martavis Bryant looked like his rookie year. He was going to be the next Plaxico Burress, and he doesn't work out.
He weeded out of this league.
Marcus Wheaton didn't work out, so they just this is a team that Scott Kazmar on Twitter put it best. They have not figured out how to adjust post Antonio Brown and post Le'Veon Bell. They were so reliant on those two just making explosive plays from an execution standpoint that schematically they just haven't adjusted, and their offensive coordinator their former offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner did a horrible job. He did such a bad job that they were able to move the ball when they took it out of his hands and when Ben Roethlisberger called the plays, So, they were stuck with kind of this just horizontal passing game, with absolutely no creativity and no talent. And that's why they blew up late in the season after an effective early season start. And Ben Roethlisberger, at his age, if you're asking him to throw 50-plus times every week, which they did, then, at his age, you're
gonna kill this guy's arm, and like James Conner really needed to take a real step this year, and he really did nothing.
And it came back to bite them, and then even in the playoffs, they it's the same issue with Mike Tomlin. We talked about it, and Ben even kind of gives them a chance to win that game, but Mike Tomlin punts it away, and so same. We talked about it on that episode, and they're not going to fire Mike Tomlin. But
no, they're not going to fire. They're unfortunately, this is probably going to be a Marvin Lewis situation where he's probably going to have to retire out for them to actually get rid of him, and that's going to be bad in the long run. But luckily for Mike Tomlin, he's at least gotten them to the promised land where Marvin Lewis didn't do anything for his 14-year tenure with the Bengals.
No, but I agree. But it's a wake-up call for this team, and I don't know. They have a lot of work to do on offense, and their defense fell apart late in the year too. So a lot to fix for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that started this season.
They started 11-0, and they couldn't do anything outside of this wild card.
And looked like they were going to be a Super Bowl representative in the AFC. And again, if Ben Roethlisberger comes back, we'll have to see because there were a lot of similarities with Ben to Peyton Manning's 2014 season, where he fell off after he started the season at an elite pace, and then he fell off late. And then 2015 he comes back and he's terrible. Curious to see if that's the case with Ben Roethlisberger as well. Although he did have a much better playoff game than Peyton Manning had in 2014. So time off, rest that arm, but certainly it's not. Now, didn't they picked up Josh Rosen, didn't they?
Dwayne Haskins.
Dwayne Haskins, right? So that's an interesting storyline as well. But
maybe Ben will train him to be like him,
Yeah, but so I don't know. They have a lot to figure out, and a lot of it's personnel, but a lot of it's organizational too. And the former you can fix, the latter is a bit harder to fix.
The one thing they really
it is.
They keep getting in these holes with like these diva players, and like there's nothing getting fixed about them. Like they're getting these guys who just cause such a ruckus. Like you had Juju Smith dancing on logos all year. Chase Claypool has more TikToks than he has receptions. Like
right,
you're not controlling your locker room anymore.
And trash talking the Browns before the game, firing them up, and then after the game as well. I mean,
Juju's like, they're the same Browns, and then they get beat, and then Chase Claypool later is like, they're gonna get smoked, and then it was actually a pretty close game.
Yeah, you fucking embarrassed yourself. I mean, you're the same old Browns, you're the same old Steelers. So again, that's the part of it.
Antonio Brown was right to flame Juju was it the last year he played with them when he fumbled that ball against the Saints? I feel less bad that Antonio Brown fucking flamed him like that, if this is what he was going to turn into, if you remember that.
Well, yeah, I do. I still, I'm not going to.
It's still stupid that he did it, but I don't feel as bad anymore because he's kind of turned into kind of a dipshit.
Antonio Brown Jr. Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's Mike Tomlin seems to have lost control of this locker room, and
he lost this years ago, even before all this. Like when Big Ben was allowed to go on the radio and just trash his teammates.
Yeah. So a lot of work to do here, and I'm not gonna,
I'm done
kind of speculate. Yeah, I'm not gonna speculate where they stand. But hopefully a good draft is where it starts, and they've drafted well in the past, so
we'll see what happens here.
Hang your hat on. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. The last NFC West team that we'll have to talk about. I know it's a bit of a harsh topic sometimes, but the LA Rams, they made it to the divisional round playoff. As we mentioned, they did it with a quarterback with 9 fingers. They had a very interesting season. They only beat the NFC East in the beginning, and we had people were praising them early. They kind of did shut up the haters a bit. They beat the Buccaneers. They beat the Bears, but like they didn't really have any like key wins here against any of the good teams. But they still made it to the playoffs. They beat the Seahawks in the wild card, and they made it to this divisional round, which I think was kind of more than I expected out of them, and I think that's huge for them.
Yeah, they go on the road and they beat the Seahawks, and Cam Akers comes on late in the year. It's a well-run organization when pretty much every assistant is getting jobs elsewhere, which has been the case for the Rams this offseason. Not just
they're losing everyone.
Yeah, Brendan Staley, 1-year wonder, and he gets hired as the next Chargers head coach. But a bunch of other lesser-known assistants get poached as well. So it's a well-run organization, and they're going to be less of a head case. I'm actually excited to talk about them because they now have an elite quarterback.
Yeah, they addressed one of their needs already, where they said when the game ended, like, all right, there's a quarterback competition between Wolford and Goff, and they said, you know what, fuck that, Goff, get the hell out of here. Yeah. Come here, Stafford.
Yeah, and they realized we can do better than that. Luckily, And again, like the Bears, it's another team where we talked about being hamstrung by their quarterback, and we don't have to talk about that anymore because
they make a decision. If you want to keep talking, give me 1 second.
Because they have an elite passer here, and it's going to be a massive upgrade for this team, for this offense, and so this is a Rams team to watch out for. Now, obviously, the Stafford needs to stay healthy here. That was an issue for him this year, but to put them in this kind of scheme where they can run the football, where you're doing the play action, where you're doing the bootlegs, where you have this well skewed passing game. When you put in someone with that kind of arm talent to execute that system, I think it's a great match, and I'm excited to see what it produces. And I guess the biggest question then is, can they be can they be as good on defense as they were this year, or was that sort of a 1 year sort of thing? And Without Brandon Staley, and of course because of the weakness of their schedule and their division, so that's something we'll have to wait and see. But even if they don't, I'm not predicting them to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but even without Stafford, they've been a well-run team, so I'd expect them to continue having winning seasons and making the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to make the playoffs with Jared Goff, like, because they have Aaron Donald, they have Jalen Ramsey, like, they have a good team here, and they brought in a new quarterback. So honestly, I see good things for them coming in the year. Hopefully next year we'll see what they can really do now. They'll probably not be playing the same NFC East team. They'll be playing probably just the I don't know if they'll be playing football team or if they'll be playing the Giants in the NFC East, so they're definitely going to have more of a challenge coming ahead here when they come to the next season.
Yeah, and it's really just depth. Like you said, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, if those guys get hurt, it's a bit of a problem for them.
Like, who do you rely on at that point?
But if they can stay healthy, then they're a solid team. So yeah. I'm excited. We're all going to be really excited to see what it looks like with Stafford on this offense.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the other team that lost on divisional round weekend. The Baltimore Ravens. They beat the Titans in the wild card. When they came into the season, for me personally, they definitely seemed much weaker than they were last year. Like, I think Lamar Jackson got a little more exposed. And kind of my issue with the Titans that I have here with the Ravens is they're way too one-dimensional, but the thing with them is they don't have any receivers that open the passing game up for them. Yeah, they had the corpse of Des Bryant and Hollywood Brown, who's more of a speedster, but they didn't have like that number one option like the Titans have with A.J. Brown, and they got exposed, I think, really easy, and they had a bit of a tougher schedule to begin with, because I know they had to play the Chiefs in the beginning seasons, but they still had more of an uphill battle to kind of go for, because they lost some games that they probably should not have. Like, they lost to the Steelers, the loss to the Patriots they shouldn't have done. Like, yeah, they lost to the Titans in overtime, but then, like, they started to beat on the weaker teams, which is good. And I think their best victory I think they had in the regular season was against the Colts team with the best defense in the league.
When it's rolling for the Ravens. I mean, they can, when it goes by their formula and they can run the football and they can get the lead, they look as good as anyone. And they're an incredibly talented and well-coached team. They're talented on defense. They draft well. So it's really, like you said, the issue is the passing game, and it really fell apart the second half of the year. I mean, and specifically after the bye, right? They start the year 5-1, and it's looking like similar to last year. They're going to be a threat for the Super Bowl, and then they lose 4 of their next 5 before finishing the season again on a winning streak. But even you and I said that was sort of fool's gold there, because they still didn't have to really effectively throw the football in any of those games. And so I think the issue, and then the other issue for them is they have, as good as they look against kind of these lesser opponents, they now have 3 kryptonites. Number 1, they can't win in the playoffs. Number 2, they don't play very well against the Steelers, and number 3, they can't beat the Chiefs. So that's an issue if you want to go anywhere meaningful in the AFC
big
here.
3 issues right there, because they play the Steelers twice every year. If they come in first, they're probably going to be playing the Chiefs every year, because the Chiefs are probably going to be in first every year Patrick Mahomes is there. And you have these new teams that are coming up, like the Colts are going to probably be becoming a huge problem for them. If they have to run into the Bills again, the Bills are probably going to stomp on them, because I think they figured them out the best out of anyone this year. They held them to 3 points. Yes, we could say that was due to wind, but like the Bills' defense is no sleeping joke. Like, this Ravens team really needs to kind of figure out how to open up their playbook a little bit and have Lamar Jackson be more of a pocket passer at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, we can talk about receivers, and they need to address it. They will address it. They'll either sign someone or draft someone, but it starts and ends at the quarterback position. And Lamar Jackson had an MVP year last year with this offense, and they kind of came into the season thinking that they'd be able to roll just like they rolled last year, and it wasn't the same. Defenses adjust as they do, and so the question here is, can Lamar Jackson be an effective enough pocket passer? And we know he can run the football. He's a top two runner in the league. Number one probably being Kyler Murray, but if not for Kyler Murray, he's easily the best runner in the league. I mean, and he's electric on the ground, and he makes game-changing plays on the ground, and we know that, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon. But you still have to be able to throw the football effectively from the pocket, and that's where he struggled. I mean, he's very jumpy. He doesn't have a lot of patience. He doesn't. His mechanics are a little iffy. That affects his accuracy. He throws sidearmed a lot, and he doesn't have a very big arm. He hasn't. That's been the case coming out of college. That's not going to change. So, can he be a smarter decision maker? Can he go deeper into his progressions? I mean, those are the things. And can they expand their passing game in terms of their route concepts? And those are the things they're going to have to work on. Going into this offseason, they're not going to stop running him. They're not going to stop doing the pistol
you
option
don't stop
stuff.
running him because that's definitely a thing you got to keep. But
right, and you can still have that stuff, but you have to be able to complement it with an effective drop back passing game, and right now they can't do that. So I'm not saying it's hopeless because they didn't have an off season, so they didn't really have an opportunity to kind of implement a new passing game. They will try to do that this year, and but it's an open question at this point, and it's sort of similar to what we saw with RG3 and Colin Kaepernick. You start off, dazzling on the ground, but if defenses adjust to that, and if you don't learn
once
how to do it,
you lose that option, you got to be able to throw it. And so Lamar
right,
Jackson
and that's the difference
between
a guy like Lamar Jackson and a guy like Deshaun Watson, for example, where Watson, he's an aggressive passer. He's going to throw the football if he needs to. No, he's not going to. He'll miss a couple first reads here and there, but he's going to pull the trigger down the field. Lamar Jackson's not there yet, and he's still a young player, so none of this to say is
he can easily turn it around. Get him the right OC to help him out, and he can let that fly.
But that's an open question, and that is their biggest weakness right now. Because other than that, they're a really good team. They're great on defense, especially up front. Running the football, it's all on J.K. Dobbins now, but I think he can handle that. And
I was gonna say, I think
although
don't they still have Gus Edwards on that team too?
I think so, but they put it all on J.K. The only question I have about J.K. Dobbins is the power aspect, because we know he has speed.
He's an elusive back. He's not much of a power back.
Right, and that sort of makes it kind of more necessary to kind of have something out of the passing game there. But they're rolling with J.K. Dobbins. They like him. They cut Mark Ingram, and I also think this team needs to invest in a better backup quarterback, because we saw them all get hurt this year. We saw Trace McSorley and RG3 get hurt. The point where who are they starting after those two? I don't even remember.
Huntley.
Oh yeah.
Tyler
Huntley. Yeah, Tyler Huntley. So I would all three of those guys are like kind of mobile guys like RG3, because they don't want to change the offense. If I were them, I would get more of a traditional drop back guy just to change things up as the backup. They can come in and complete a few passes, because these mobile guys, they keep getting hurt. I mean, it's really strange to have both of your backups hurt and have to turn to an undrafted guy that, if you don't follow the Pac-12 like I do, no one knows who you are. So that's another thing. But we know they have the best kicker in the league, although he did struggle late.
He got two doinks on that playoff game. So again, it was very windy though that day, so can't really fault.
He gets someone pointed this out, which I love. Justin Tucker gets Adam Gase bug eyes when he misses. Have you noticed that? Because he's so surprised by his misses. If you ever watch him,
he misses, he freaks.
He gets it's pretty funny. But special teams, they're a well-rounded, well-coached team. Got to figure out the passing game if you want to get to the next step.
That's really their thing, is the passing game.
Yep.
All right. Other AFC North. I didn't realize I completely forgot 3 AFC North teams made it because I didn't count the Steelers. The Cleveland Browns lost divisional weekend too. They lost to the Chiefs. They had a bit of a rough going. They lost their number 1 receiver in Odell. But they definitely held their own here. But they went 4-2. They really didn't lose a beat. The big loss, I think, was to the Jets. Was their biggest loss, because you're not supposed to lose to the Jets. Good. But they had a great team.
Yeah, really good foundation. I think Kevin Stefanski is probably in the mix for Coach of the Year here, and especially I think the thing that Excuse me. I think the thing that gives me the most hope here is how their passing game progressed as the year went on,
Yeah.
because especially starting, you know that was a question for them. Similar to the Titans and Ravens, if they couldn't do the bootleg stuff, then could they be proactive? And they had pretty bad losses early in the year before the bye, and then after these kind of starting in kind of week 13, they go 41-35 win against the Titans, 42-47 loss against the Ravens. The Jets loss was bad, but then they go on the road. They go on the road and they beat Pittsburgh. Now I think that was more about Pittsburgh beating Pittsburgh than the Browns. But the fact they're only going to get better here. Baker Mayfield's going to get better, and like you said, they get their number one receiver back in
Get Odell back
Odell
and like,
Beckham Jr. and that'll be huge for them. I think
yeah,
so. Really
this team's got
well
nothing to do but
coached.
go up.
They have a running back. They have Nick Chubb and they have Kareem Hunt. So they have the 1-2 punch at running back is as good as it gets in this league, honestly.
Yeah, like this team is going up. They've got Denzel Ward holding the corners. They got Myles Garrett up front. I think Olivier Vernon is up there as well. Like they even have like a solid tight end in Austin Hooper. Like, and you see Peoples Jones is like starting to come up too as like a solid slot receiver for them, because Jarvis Landry is going to be the 2. Odell's going to come back. He's going to be the 1. So this team is just really well rounded, and with the O-line as well, maybe just put a few more key pieces on that O-line. This team will be solid and roaring next year.
Yeah, I think Austin Hooper as well. They picked up right.
They took him from the Falcons.
Yeah, this offseason. So he was a good pickup for them. And really, it depends on can Baker Mayfield continue to progress. But I think he will. And yeah, just a really well-rounded team. They run the football, and let's not forget that this Cleveland team goes to the playoffs for the first time since 2002. I mean, that's a pretty huge accomplishment.
Huge
Not only do they go, but they actually win. They actually win a playoff game, so they can compete in the AFC North, especially considering the issues we spoke to with the Ravens and the Steelers. Now that the results weren't good early this year, but again, that was before both the Ravens and the Steelers fell off, and before the Browns sort of found their footing. So, can they then get over that hump next year? And I think there are indications that they can.
I think they will definitely make some noise next year. They're going to get a lot of key pieces back. I think just maybe get a few upgrades of here or there, and this team will be roaring. I mean, like I didn't even realize this too. Njoku was like their backup tight end, so like they've got weapons for Baker, and I don't see him taking.
I forgot Njoku was even there, which is pretty
exactly.
crazy
I went to go look at their depth chart. So like I don't see Baker taking a huge step back. I see him just taking I see him taking a step forward and becoming a great here.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
All right, last team to lose on divisional weekend. It was sad for me to see because I don't like Tom Brady. The Saints did lose to the Buccaneers, unfortunately. The Saints, I feel like, had the strongest outing out of all the NFC teams, to be honest with you. I think they just had a better team all around. The Drew Brees injury was rough. Taysom Hill stepping in to win 3 games against the Broncos and 2 against the Falcons helped them a lot. But I think when Drew Brees was clicking with this team, I think they were truly the best team in the NFC. Being a Falcons fan, I hate myself for saying that now, so I'm going to let you take it away for a bit as I recoup from that word.
No, I agree with you. I think they were looking to go to the Super Bowl, and at the end of the day, Drew Brees got hurt, and that's really, and he played a bad playoff game, and they turned the football over, and that sort of left them out. But we know they already beat the Bucks twice. I mean, before that loss, so we know they could beat the Bucks. It really was just kind of Drew not that sort of a fluky loss there. But if Drew Brees truly is retiring, I mean, that's the story here, and then. What do they do to move on? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it Taysom Hill? Or is it someone else?
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting call to see what they do at quarterback. I mean, it's also going to be interesting because I don't know what they're going to do with Michael Thomas right now because he's been definitely kind of a head case for them this year. He was having some issues with them, behind the scenes from reports. Like he was complaining about his targets and all that stuff. So we'll see what they do with him too. But they're going to have a very interesting changing of the guard here. Like, Drew is probably going to retire. Right. So are they? I don't know if Winston is the answer. Is it going to be Taysom Hill? They're going to have some big questions, and Sean Payton's going to have a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, and what does the passing game look like without Drew Brees? I mean, Drew Brees it was really interesting that Drew Brees was, as soon as Drew left and Taysom started playing, Kamara got,
He got
his
cooking there.
production
Like,
dipped.
if you look at that game against the Broncos, like Taysom Hill didn't really throw that much.
No, his production in the receiving game went down to pretty much zero. So, and that's and which is amazing because he's pretty much Drew's number one guy when he's in. So, um, and are we gonna see, after all these years, we thought Winston would start and Taysom Hill is the one who started. So, after all these years of Taysom Hill coming in to do these gadget plays and everyone talking about, is he a franchise guy or is he just another Tim Tebow? We might finally see. Does Sean Payton like Taysom Hill enough to actually give him a shot to start and be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints here? But it is either way. It's a big. I personally wouldn't do that, but Sean really likes him. But either way, it's a big change. I mean, Drew has been the identity of this team. Drew Brees and Sean Payton have almost been one in the way you think about them and their relationship, and he's been there since 2006, and he's been one of the best quarterbacks of our generation, if not the best, during certainly during the last decade, and definitely during the last two. So. It's going to be a big time change for the New Orleans Saints if the reports are true and Drew does end up going to retirement.
We are going to have to see what happens here with the
Yeah.
Saints. They've probably got a lot of issues here. Maybe they're definitely gonna have to do a little looking around here and some soul searching if Drew retires. That's gonna be big. That's gonna be a huge loss for them.
Yeah.
Championship weekend, we had two losers that day. We'll talk about the biggest loser, the Packers, because they cannot get out of this NFC Championship anymore since 2011.
Well, everything went right this year until the playoff game. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, after a 4-year slump, gets back to his standards, gets back to playing at an MVP level, and they run the ball more effectively than they have in years with the two-headed monster of Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Now we'll see if AJ Dillon takes over for Aaron Jones next year rather. That'll be a big storyline to watch in the offseason. But Devontae Adams has established himself as one of the best, if not the best receivers in the league, and you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Alan Lazard as 2 and 3, and then Robert Tonyan comes on here as well. So everything's rolling got some pieces here. Everything's rolling for this Green Bay Packers team, but they get in the playoffs. Kevin King's a liability at corner. They have a bunch of bad coaching calls. They can't execute the red zone the way they have for most of the year, and they give up a Hail Mary again before the end of the half, and they get some bad pass interference calls, and just like that, it's another home field loss, and Aaron Rodgers was frustrated, and as he should be frustrated with his organization because he played a pretty damn good game, and certainly outplayed Tom Brady in that game, and yet Brady again is the one going to the Super Bowl. So
yeah, with three interceptions, and he's going to the Super Bowl after that NFC Championship game. I mean, for the Packers,
and what's amazing?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was just going to say what's amazing with the Green Bay Packers is how often not that they've lost in the playoffs, not even the way they've lost, but that they keep losing the rematches, right? It's they lose in the regular season and they can't adjust. It's like if they find a team that knows how to play them and they have to rematch with that team in the playoffs, then they're going to lose that game. I mean, it happened. They got swept. I mean, I didn't realize the degree to which they've been swept out of the playoffs, meaning they lost to a team that they also lost to in the regular season. It happened in 2012 to the 49ers. It happened in 2013 to the 49ers. It happened in 2014 against the Seahawks. It happened in 2015 against the Cardinals. And it happened in 2016 against the Falcons. It happened in 2019 against the 49ers. And it happened in 2020 against the Buccaneers. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight playoff games, Sam's, that they have been swept out of the playoffs. So you get a new coach in there, and you think, oh, Mike McCarthy's gone, so it's not going to be an issue. But it's the same old story. And it's the Achilles heel of this Packers team, in that they can't, when they have to come from behind, or when they find a team that knows how to play them, they can't adjust, and that's why they're sitting at home. And again, it's hard because they're a good team and they're going to continue being a good team, but until they can figure out how to how to win in the playoffs against these teams that have their number. It's just going to be more heartbreak for Aaron Rodgers here.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of a big thing too. I think the Packers are going to have to figure out what they want to do with Aaron Rodgers because they did draft Jordan Love before as well. And, like you mentioned, they also drafted A.J. Dillon. So, I mean, Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers might be their time in Green Bay might be over, some people were saying. So we'll have to see what the Packers do. Like, they have a very interesting offseason coming up as well and see what they're going to do.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Aaron Rodgers moved on from Green Bay, considering the season he just had. But you're right. I mean, that's another thing that, they drafted Jordan Love thinking we're not going to be picking in the first round for a while. Let's get a head start. Let's, trying to recreate this Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers model. But it was a really weird pick because, Aaron Rodgers is now playing at an MVP level. You don't want to get rid of him, but you only have so many years for a rookie on a rookie contract before you have to pay him. So even if Rodgers comes back next year, I don't know. There's going to get to a point where they're going to either have to get rid of Aaron Rodgers or trade Jordan Love, like the Patriots did with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? So I think they can put that off for another year, maybe even two, but not past that point.
No, they got time. Unfortunately, they don't have the luxury of what Jimmy G did because Jimmy actually went out and played a few while Tom was suspended and showed why he'd be worth it. And unfortunately, Jordan Love hasn't gotten any opportunities to take a snap yet.
Yeah, it's an issue for them, and I don't know what they're going to do. But so we'll watch them in the offseason, and we know they're going to be competitive. But it's Aaron Rodgers hasn't won a Super Bowl since his third season. It's now been a decade. So they Mike McCarthy's gone, but the same problems in terms of getting over the hump remain here.
I've noticed that quarterbacks who win early can't continue.
And this one was not on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, again, he outplayed Tom Brady in that game, but they lost due to other factors, as we've discussed time and time again.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the last team to lose before we get to our Super Bowl matchup, the Buffalo Bills. They had probably the best season you could have thought of. Tom leaves New England, and the Bills said, "This is our division, bitches. Get out."
Baby. Yeah, I mean, what's amazing is, and we've talked about it all year, but what's amazing is the jump that Josh Allen made, and I mean, he was a below average,
huge jump. This kid,
below average, below replacement level quarterback in his first 2 years, despite their ability to win and go to the playoffs last year, and then all of a sudden he comes out and he's playing at an MVP level, and they lost 4 games on the year, 3 in the regular season.
Honestly, I don't think they should have lost that one. It was just unfortunate play.
Right, and it was the Hail Murray, and then a weird loss to the Titans, and then 2 losses to the Chiefs. And we said, if you want to win in the AFC, you're going to have to get to
beat the Chiefs, and
that remains a question. That remains a question for them as well as for anyone. But other than that, I mean, Stephon Diggs was a huge pickup in the offseason, and pair him with John Brown and Cole Beasley, and then as well as who is the running back they drafted?
Zach Moss.
Was it Zach Moss? Yeah, Zach Moss as well. He came on late in the year. So again, they are looking to own this division moving forward, and they've got the biggest thing, which is their franchise quarterback, and now they've just got to figure out how to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, like honestly, I was actually shocked that what is it? Their offensive coordinator didn't get a job. I thought they were going to wait for him.
Brian Dable. I was really surprised he didn't get a job as well.
Yeah, no one gave him a job. I thought he was going to get picked up, but no one wanted him.
He did a phenomenal job. I thought the Chargers would definitely hire him.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm shocked that these teams didn't wait. Like we talked about earlier, like Eric Bieniemy, I'm shocked he didn't get a job from this season, and Gable too. Like those are 2 guys I'm shocked did not get anything. I think we lost Carey for a bit. We'll get him right back. Hold on. But yeah, I'm shocked that none of those guys got jobs. Oh, call failed. I have to give him a second. So none of those guys got jobs. And now they're going to be coming back next year, and they're going to probably make a bigger push, and they could probably find a way to beat these Chiefs. Hold on. Let's get that call in. Let's see if we can get him back. But so this Bills team, I think, did really well. They did some good stuff. If we don't get Carey back, we'll get him in a second then. Oh, here it is. That's probably him. Where's he calling from? Let's see if hitting that'll help. I'm really confused where it's coming from. All right, hold on. We're going to cancel that for a second. We're going to try to get Mr. Carey back. Oh. Yeah, so, redialing him. Redial. What was that? Yeah, I think we lost you for a bit there, bud.
There are weekly technical difficulties. Yeah, you froze. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, you froze too on my side.
Okay. Well, I'm back. It's actually good because I was out of juice on my.
So good timing.
Yeah. So can you hear me all right, though?
We were talking about how we thought Brian Gable and Eric Bieniemy did not get jobs this year.
Yeah, definitely both those guys. And for the Bills, phenomenal coaching staff with Sean McDermott and Brian Dable, and they'll be back next year. But yeah, again, it was a really good season for the Bills. I mean, it never feels good when you lose in the playoffs, but again, it was a pretty good team they lost to. So, pretty impressive year for the Bills, honestly.
They had a great year. I'm sad that they didn't make it on. I would have loved to see them in the Super Bowl this year, but unfortunately, the Chiefs are just too good, and they played a great game against them.
Yeah, and they'll be right back in the mix next year. So.
Oh, they'll definitely be back here.
Yeah. So.
All right, our Super Bowl matchup, it was set. We did not talk about it last week because we didn't want to waste our time because the Pro Bowl was going on, and we all skipped that because that was stupid.
I was going to ask if you, because when I was reviewing our podcast for last week, we mentioned the Pro Bowl, and I was like, wait, I totally forgot you didn't watch it, did you?
No, not even close. So the way the Pro Bowl worked, before we get into this, it was they did a Pro Bowl celebration where they were just talking on ESPN, ABC, and all that stuff. Like, they were just talking. There was nothing really going on. And then at 5 o'clock on Twitch, they were doing a game of Madden. It was Kyler Murray, I think Snoop Dogg was there, Keyshawn, Marshawn Lynch, and they were just switching off playing Madden.
All right. Well, actually, this was the first weekend without football for me in a long time, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of enjoyed it because I sort of felt like I had time to, do things. When it's football season, I'm kind
of zone out. I mean, I spent my Sunday working on our stream setup, so I had some time to relax and hopefully you guys, whoever's watching on YouTube, I tried to make our podcast look better. I tried to make our stream look better, so hopefully it's greatly appreciated, and it's good to have some time off from football for a little bit. Basketball is pretty easy to keep up with. Just watch highlights. You don't have to watch the game.
Right. No, football's it's such a commitment, and I love it, but it's like all day you're just glued to the TV.
So it was definitely nice to have a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
So next week is the last week of football. I am sad, but
can you believe we made it, Sam?
We made it. Like, honestly, I'm shocked. I thought some of the games were going to get canceled, but the NFL was able to pull through.
And I've shit on the NFL a lot, and they deserve it a lot, but I'll give them props for this one, especially compared to watching what a shit show college football was. The NFL.
I say college football, basketball is even doing kind of worse right now, and hockey's having the roughest of outings.
The NFL did a really good job, and I was reading an article early on about how we know this country fucked up the COVID relief, but I was reading an article about how the 6 feet 15-minute rule in terms of COVID was not accurate. You can get COVID indoors even if you're 6 feet apart, and even if it's less than 15 minutes. And the reason we know that is because of the research the NFL did. They and a big part of their research was discovering that the 6 feet 15-minute rule was too lenient, and that we needed to heavy quarantine the contacts. And obviously that was research I wish the government had been doing, but it showed that they were really committed to this research to play football. And again, I know that there's question about it, but I certainly give them credit for.
They did, I think, one of the better jobs out of all of our leagues. I
I
mean,
would
yes,
agree.
basketball had their bubble, but once the bubble bursted here, because they're back in regular season,
Right.
I think they're having more issues than before. Hockey,
Yeah.
like a whole team, like they've already had whole teams kind of had to sit out. I think
Yeah.
baseball would be probably like one of the better sides of doing it as well, because they did
Yeah.
mini bubbles, but they also had private hotels ready to go. And if people broke the rules, they just sent them home for the season,
And I
keeping
would
them as
think
safe as possible.
there's not as much contact in baseball either, though, right? I mean, it's outdoors, it's more wide open.
Yeah, the
I
only
don't.
thing is, like, some people do have to stand near each other. Like, they
That's
had
true.
one incident beginning of the year, but once the beginning of the year swung by, like, baseball was moving. They were making it the best of it.
I'm not a baseball guy. I feel like you could even play baseball with masks on. I mean, you don't need to run that much in baseball. I don't know.
When you're in the field, maybe, but when you're up to bat, it's kind of bad.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But anyway, they made it, and we got a Super Bowl coming up, Sam.
Super Bowl, we have the Kansas City Chiefs flying to Tampa for the host Buccaneers. I think I've never had to utter those words for any Super Bowl, because usually it's a neutral location, but the Buccaneers made it on their home field.
And you know they're gonna have the state of Florida is gonna be like, yeah, fill up the stadium, do whatever you want, and Tom Brady's gonna have a nice home field advantage here.
No, the NFL told them they're not allowed to do that already.
Oh, they did?
They already made a rule because they're inviting people who are in. They're like inviting like medical staff who's been fighting it head on, who took the vaccine. They'll be the ones in the stadiums. They will not be allowed to bring in as many people.
It's not going to be empty though.
It's not going to be empty. There's going to be people.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we got a Super Bowl matchup. As you said, it seems appropriate. This seems like who Tom Brady should be facing, the old guard versus the young guard. It's all here. It's all here for your viewing pleasure. Thinking about this game, here's what I'm thinking about. If the Chiefs come out and start scoring right away, I almost said the Patriots. The Bucks are not going to be able to keep up with them. If the Chiefs come up and go up 17-0, the Bucks aren't going to win in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. They're just not. So they need to. It's going to be on their defense, and to their credit, their defense has been phenomenal this postseason. Here's what I think they need to do. I don't think you can play zone against Patrick Mahomes because he's just too good. And we saw it. Buffalo tried to play zone, and
Didn't
Travis
work.
Kelce just sat down in the holes, and Patrick Mahomes can manipulate zones with his eyes, do the no-look passes. So I think they're going to press. I think they're going to play tight man coverage. I think they're going to double Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, which sounds obvious, but a lot of teams don't do that. And I think you got to make the other guys beat you. And if they certainly have other guys that can beat you, but if we haven't heard a ton from Sammy Watkins this year, if it goes to him or if it goes to Demarcus Robinson, is he the other? I don't even know their number 4. Demetrius Lawrence. It's either Demarcus Robinson or Demetrius Lawrence.
I think Robinson.
Yeah, and he's struggled with chops at times. So
Tyreek, they have Pringle, Antonio Callaway. Demarcus Robinson's actually hurt right now.
he is. So make those other guys beat you.
Oh, and Hardman. I don't know if you remember him.
Right, Mecole Hardman. Yeah, he's another guy I'm surprised they haven't used more. Now, the Bucks do have the advantage in the running game because the Chiefs have not been able to run the football this year. We'll see if they had a good. Darrell Williams had a couple good playoff games, so we'll see if that changes here. And then on the Bucks side of the ball, I think that they're going to, on first down, they like to get in these heavy formations, and they like to go play action. They like to do 7-step drops. So you have to be ready to defend those deep shots because we know that's a staple of a Bruce Arians offense. And you have to get in Tom Brady's face. You have to hit him, and you have to hit him throughout the game. You have to confuse the looks. You have to confuse your pressure looks. We saw some of his interceptions against the Packers when they had free rushers, and he just tossed it up there with a guy in his face. So you have to get in his face, and you have to do it throughout the game. The teams that have been able to beat Brady in the playoffs are the teams that increase their pass rush in the fourth quarter as opposed to decrease. So you think about, the Giants and the Broncos and how much pressure they were able to get on Brady in the fourth quarter compared to, and again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but the Falcons and Super Bowl.
They eased up the pressure.
the first 3 quarters, they're all in Brady's face, and then they were gassed, and he didn't have guys in his face. If you don't get guys in Brady's face in the fourth quarter,
He's beating you.
he's clutch. He's going to make throws. Now, in terms of in terms of who I think is going to win, it's tough because I want the Chiefs to win so bad. For a while, I was thinking it seemed like all the juju was heading towards the Bucks. Right? They have this home field game. We picked against them, and they keep winning. It just seems like this sort of stuff tends to go right for Tom Brady. But at the end of the day, I was thinking about this. The Chiefs are a special team. They're battle tested. They pass every test they go through. They're pretty much unstoppable in the passing game. These two teams already played this year, and the Chiefs won. So I think the Chiefs have a really. I know it's hard to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. But I think I know defense wins championships. The Bucks have a better defense, but I think the Chiefs have a really good shot here. They don't, Aaron Rodgers played a really good game a week ago, but Patrick Mahomes right now he's on a whole different level. I mean, even if you have good coverage, these guys beat you. We've talked about it. They have pretty much 30 points on the board automatically. So and Tom Brady hasn't been playing well this postseason, and he got an injured. He got Taylor Heineke. He got an injured Drew Brees, and Matt LaFleur kind of gave that game away for them. So, I think it's a great matchup, but, Kansas City has a lot of firepower here. And I don't know, Sam, I feel like maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I feel like it's going to be tough for the Bucks to keep up. What are your thoughts on this game?
So for me personally, to touch notes first, you said they have to go up 17-0 to really beat them. And I mean, that's what they did in the first matchup here because Tyreek Hill bursted out on them for 269 yards because I remember we were talking about that as well. So that's going to be huge for them. But I think for this matchup here, it's really going to come down to which quarterback can make the bigger play here. Like, they both have these amazing receivers. Unfortunately, both defenses I don't think will keep up. Will it be Tyreek's, fast-pacedness, or will it be Mike Evans' tall and sturdiness here? I think it's really going to come down to most Super Bowls, unfortunately, do come down to the one, like that one play. Like, we could talk about the helmet catch. You could talk about Mario Manningham's sideline catch. Julian Edelman's bobble between Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen. You could talk about the Taylor Lockett catch in the Super Bowl. Like, it's going to come down to which receiver makes down that big catch here. And I think just Tyreek Hill is going to blast off against one of these corners to make, like, that moment catch for him.
And it's interesting because you look at the Super Bowl last year, and obviously, Tom Brady, you would think is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, although he hasn't played better this postseason. But at the end of the day, the 49ers did everything you need to do to defend Patrick Mahomes.
They did, and just Patrick Mahomes said, I'm going.
Right.
Robert Saleh said, too, like, if you see Patrick Mahomes limping, don't ease up on him. He's just playing you. And which is funny, but they did. They had a 20-10 lead in the fourth quarter. They had all the momentum, and Mahomes was not playing well, and then 3rd and long, that throw to Tyreek Hill, that opened it up. That's a throw that only he can make. I mean, no other quarterback. I know people are always wide open. No other quarterback can make a throw that far down the field while backpedaling 20 yards from the line of scrimmage. I mean, like he was on the move, like he had no time to set himself, and he let it fly. I mean, there's going to be a play like that's going to happen this year too, and I think that's what's going to put Patrick Mahomes over Brady years, because I don't think if Brady had to be in that situation, he's not making that play like Mahomes can.
No, I totally agree. So I think the best, we've talked about all year how the Chiefs they haven't always brought their A game, and maybe Andy Reid does something stupid from a play calling perspective, and that's the best bet I think for the Bucks. But I think it's even better odds that he'll have some play that they're not ready to defend, because we saw in the Super Bowl last year when they went for it on 4th down with the kind of spin around play that they stole from the Rose Bowl that was that direct. And Brady, as good as Bruce Arians is, as good as this defense is, it's not like you have Belichick that's going to craft some master defensive game plan to shut down Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is going to do what he's going to do. So, and look, the Bucks have all the weapons. They probably have the more rounded team, but they don't have Patrick Mahomes, and the guys.
That's the key right there. Is going to be Patrick Mahomes' play, and I think they kind of worked out some of the kinks with the trick plays throughout the year. Like, we see them bust out these random ass plays to try out to see what'll work, and then when the time comes now, they'll take that data. Like that play against the Falcons when they threw it up to Patrick Mahomes. They know now.
Yeah,
don't do it.
Let's scrap that one. But and I think as much as they've been winning close games all year, I think they had such a dominant win against the Bills that I think if you get this far with winning close games, then your luck does. Usually, if you can make it this far, if luck hasn't caught up with you yet, then it's not good. We saw with the 2011 Giants, they were winning close games all year. They did it in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I don't think that all of a sudden they're gonna find themselves on the losing end.
I think a lot of these Chief games, like they've been like in the runnings all the time. Like the game that they really lost, I feel like, was the Raiders game, and that it wasn't really much of a blowout. They were keeping pace and pace. It's just, I guess, the Raiders had just one step above them, and they couldn't.
It was just that was one of those division rivalries.
That's just a division game. Like there's only like I think one other game here that they struggled, but honestly, I don't feel like they were playing their full. I think they were just using their time to like figure things out, like try new plays. They weren't taking their opponent seriously.
Yeah, and I agree. I totally agree with that. And they're so good in the red zone. They're so good in the 2-minute drill, in the 4-minute drill. And they're not going to give you a chance to kind of win without going score for score. And I don't know that we've seen that from Brady in recent weeks. They've been winning with defense. How many times this postseason have we seen Brady drive the field? We haven't.
No, like honestly, the bigger plays come from Ronald Jones nowadays, or Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I forgot to. Fournette out of the backfield has become, which is weird because a year ago I would have said Fournette's not a receiver. You're kidding me? But Fournette out of the backfield has become big this year. But let's not forget Steve Spagnuolo has some experience, playing against Brady. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo was a defensive coordinator in Super Bowl 42. When the Giants gave the Patriots their first loss, so he knows about giving.
He knows how to play Brady, and he's he's on the Chiefs sideline, isn't he?
He is. And so it's not like the 2018 overtime loss Brady had against the Chiefs, or overtime win Brady had against the Chiefs in the playoffs. That was Bob Sutton. There's been a big difference between Bob Sutton and Steve Spagnuolo. So I mean, maybe it's all wishful thinking. Knock on wood here, but. That's not wood.
I knocked on my desk, which is wood. Okay. But this is honestly, I feel like this should be a game that the Chiefs should take because I mean, you said Spagnuolo's beaten him and he knows what to do. Andy Reid has the experience now, and he's seen Tom Brady firsthand as well quite a few times. Patrick Mahomes is not the same player he was in 2018. I think this is probably a better. Yes, he won the MVP in 2018, but. This form of him right now, who should win the MVP, but I know won't because they're, sucking Aaron Rodgers off right now. I think this is just the best Patrick Mahomes we've seen so far.
Yeah, and if they win the Super Bowl, they deserve it because but it's going to be tough because the Bucks are okay. Other thing I forgot to mention. If you're the Chiefs defense, you've got to keep an eye on Scotty Miller because every team seems to forget that this guy exists. You get so caught up in the big names that it seems like every week Scotty Miller catches a deep ball and no one's covering him. Don't let Scotty Miller out of your sight.
When you see Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, you're going to forget about Scotty Miller, and then he's going to catch a Hail Mary on you before halftime.
Right. So don't let him out of your sight, Chiefs. That's the other thing I'll say for the Chiefs defense.
One last thing that I want to bring note to for this matchup here is I saw a thing here. Andy Reid's 3 Super Bowls have all been in Florida. Jacksonville was when he played the Patriots, when he was on the Eagles. Miami, Florida was last year when he won. Now they're in Tampa.
Yeah, and don't think that our guy Andy Reid has forgotten about that first Super Bowl loss.
No, he definitely has not.
So, and this is talk about Patrick Mahomes. This is this would launch him into legendary territory. Probably the best already is one of the best 3-year starts of any quarterback. But this would probably, you could argue that if he won this game and then retired, he'd already be a Hall of Famer. But he could
retire before the game. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Right, but what it would do for Andy Reid. I mean, for Andy Reid to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. I mean, so
he was already a Hall of Fame coach before the first Super Bowl win. So
right, so and then that just kind of was a cherry on top. So a lot at stake in this game, and obviously Tom Brady. This would be Tom Brady's 7th Super Bowl win, and that would kind of make football unwatchable for the rest of our life. I'll be honest, Sam. I really wish that Troy Aikman was doing this game because Tony Romo's just gonna
Is he annoying you that much?
He jacks off Tom Brady so much. I mean,
We should do a
he's gonna talk
simulcast with Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll watch it on Nickelodeon.
No, this feels like I really wish Troy Aikman was doing this game, but
I'd prefer Al Michaels.
Yeah, that too. But NBC is the best broadcast team for sure. But
whoever brings back Gus Johnson for me will be the best.
Yeah, but
I loved him.
Collinsworth can editorialize a bit during Super Bowls. I still he kind of I'm not I don't know. I won't go into it all right now. But the last Giants Super Bowl win, he was all like, "Oh, Ahmad Bradshaw made this huge mistake scoring. Now Brady's going to go back and score." And I'm like, bro, like you want to give the Giants some credit for getting the game-winning touchdown, and also his call of the Patriots interception, was where he kind of put it on them for not running the ball, which I get, but again, I think I don't know. I think Troy Aikman. The reason I say that, I think he is the least biased. He's the straightest. He's just going to give you the play, right? Like he's not gonna editorialize it. But it is what it is, and hopefully it's manageable here.
Yeah, well, now Tony Romo's been to 2 Super Bowls without the Cowboys, so.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Mr. Carey, what's up?
You got a score for this one? Got a score prediction?
No. I have no idea where this will go.
Okay.
Why don't we call it 30-10? No, 30-20, not 10, my bad. 30-20 to the Chiefs.
All right, I'm gonna go 34-24 Chiefs.
All right. Mr. Carey, I think that's going to wrap up our time here. If you'd like to give your plugs, my good friend.
Or do I want to go 34-27? No. Let's go. Let's go 34-27.
All right, 34-27. We're both going the Chiefs, though. That's our score picks.
Yeah. So check me out at footballck.wordpress.com or at lafbnetwork.com in the UCLA Bruins section. And enjoy the Super Bowl, guys.
Enjoy. We will be back. We'll do all the sports next week. We just had a lot to cover here. I had to go over the fun NFL season we just had here. Carey, I don't know what our plans will be for NFL stuff, but when the off season happens, we'll definitely have you on again when all that news breaks out.
Hey, appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun all season. I really appreciate you having me on, Sam.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be back for some off season fun, and hopefully we'll be back for the draft and all that other good NFL stuff.
Sounds good, man.
All right, everybody, make sure to follow us on Twitter. Keep an eye out. We do upload on YouTube, all that other stuff. And just enjoy the rest of your day, guys.